is here for you.
Hi, my dear Astro family. So today we are going to be looking at Saturn in the sign of Aries transit through the houses. Now, I've invited a bunch of astrologers. Everyone gave their interpretation. I also gave insights connected to how Saturn in the sign of Aries might be playing out. So I decided to put this together. It's going to be a couple of hour video to help you navigate your life a little bit through the lenses of Saturn. I think this is a very important transit. I think this is the start of a new era. I think if we are kind of like taking the advice from Saturn in the sign of Aries, a lot of us can actually succeed. And then if we don't follow the path of Saturn in the sign of Aries, I think there is going to be a lot of failure as well at the same time. So I decided to kind of like put together positive and negative manifestations of Saturn in the sign of Aries for each rising sign. So let's get going. So let's start with Aries rising sign. Of course, it's going to be mega important for you because Saturn will be transiting your first house. And on one hand, this could indicate that it's time to make changes of how you present yourself to the world. You need to come across strong, powerful, courageous, but at the same time, we're going to have to be serious and we're going to have to be responsible as well. So more responsibility, for example, to attend, and often that can make us a little bit overwhelmed, and therefore it can kind of like drain the vitality out of our body. So we're gonna have to be careful when it comes to how we are taking care of the self. Remember that we've got the Saturn series cycle that is also about to start in the sign of Aries, and that cycle lasts for approximately about 4.5 years. And maybe you're going to have to be shifting your priorities. Maybe we're going to have to have a more systematic approach to life. And maybe we're just going to have to be, because Aries often likes burning the candle from both ends. So we're going to have to be kind of like deciding which end we're going to start with. So there is a little bit of a priority, kind of like a step-by-step guide that you might want to be writing down for yourself and then following that. And I think it's time to focus on expressing who you are, kind of like showing an unapologetic version of yourself. Maybe you have been focusing on others and you're going to have to start walking away from that. And often Saturn says, it's self-mastery in the sign of Aries, and especially in the first house. Often we're just gonna have to find the inner strength to make changes, the inner strength to get out of a relationship or get out of a work scenario, or being able to become self-employed and so forth. I think this is going to be a key for you. And relationship challenges are also possible, but due to silence, Aries is not about being quiet. But I'm going to remain professional with Saturn at the same time. So obviously Saturn is coming from your 12th house, and you had to be working through that victimhood mindset. You had to be having a vision, and you had to kind of like crystallize that vision, prioritize the vision. And then Aries says, now it is time for realization. It is time to get the role bowling. Now, traditionally you're gonna read stuff like that connected to Saturn in the in the first house, that you are going to lose weight and so forth. It highly depends what you did in the 12th house. Did you manage to get rid of certain type of bad habits? And such as the cravings for sugar. Pisces represent cravings. And if we haven't been able to do that, actually, Saturn in your first house can bring issues related to weight problems and even weight gain as well. So always make sure that you look with Saturn what happened in the 12th house. What kind of like you started restricting, like the spiritual materialism, or I started kind of like gaining clarity about what my spiritual mission is. And if we had those breakthroughs, then this first house is that I have to be seen. I have to make that happen. If we just wandered about and then we were having these withdrawal symptoms and then we were just sleeping all the time and so forth, then Saturn in the first house can bring you a lot of struggle. But still, it's never too late, right? Let's build up the strength. Let's have the stamina. Stamina. Let's do a lot of self or inner reflection as well. Let's remove certain type of weights from our shoulders. And also, let's take on some challenges. Let's take on responsibilities because that is also kind of like moving us forward. It also feels like that it's not just about tapping into who you are, but you're going to have to be able to build your confidence level as well. It's also about embracing the fear and limitations. In the 12th house, you were meant to be figuring out what your fears and limitations were. And then now Aries, which is kind of like the surgical knife, I'm gonna remove them. I'm gonna cut them out. And therefore, I can go through a maturation process, a self-development process, and that leads to self-mastery. And I'm not gonna need any more validation from others. I'm not gonna need I'm not going to care about others judging me and so forth. If I want to change my appearance, I do so. If I want to build muscles, I do so. I don't necessarily care anymore. And I love this aspect for you. And, I mean, Saturn is the planet of homework. So your homework can be connected to your physical body, as I said. Maybe you haven't started something connected to your medical self-care. Maybe you have started it, but you haven't finished it yet. So Saturn retrograde, especially this year and the beginning of next year, is going to give you the opportunity to finish something off, tying up the loose ends somehow. And maybe this is also a little bit of an inventory, looking at what I have achieved in life and where do I want to go with it? Like, what else would I like to achieve? Now, some of the negative ones, lowered vitality, depression, feeling lonely and alone. Even though we want to make connections to others, but at the same time, we might be scared to do so. And therefore, with Saturn, we can pull up a wall right in front of us, which is quite unpenetrable, especially in the sign of Aries. Because Saturn has got this fall position in the sign of Aries. It could talk to us about psychological prison. And we create those, especially if you have created the prison already the last 2.5 years, while Saturn was in the 12th house. And simply we can get aggravated by others or anything around us, the little things as well. The Antisha point of Aries is a Virgo, so we can get annoyed just by little things. But Aries makes a mole out of makes a mountain out of a mole, even though it moves on very quickly, but it can cause a huge damage as well at the same time. And I also feel like Saturn is asking you to make your life a hell lot simpler. So let's figure out the dreams, let's figure out how we're gonna get there, and then simple little tasks that I'm gonna be taking on. Saturn is a social planet, so I don't think it's time to become a hermit. That was the last 2.5 years. For you right now, it's a little bit more to get to know the world, to reach out to kind of like elderly people because they might be able to give you some really valuable information, for example. Uh, yes, there could be such thing that you're gonna start seeing your first gray hair, or it could indicate that aging is gonna start bothering you. Or it could indicate, unfortunately, a loss of a parent, a loss of a grandparent, or just simply having to take care of the parents. It feels like that's an extra duty and responsibility, and also it could be burden as well. And I also believe that with this, it can feel like that life is very heavy. And then if we kind of gave up already with Saturn in the 12th house, then this is hopefully a reset when you realize what your passions are, and then you're going to start moving towards it. And, if you, for example, lost weight while Saturn was in the 12th house, then Saturn basically has nothing to cut away from your life. So it's going to just start building up strength and then it's going to help you actually lose weight even further. If you gained weight while Saturn was in the 12th house, then potentially we can experience some health issues. So it's good to be looking at, as mentioned earlier, what went down in your life previously, right? But rebuilding the self-image, for example, becoming a parent, getting married, getting divorced, having your first child, having your first grandchild. These could be topics as well. Another tip I would like to give you is that it's super important to look at what house Saturn comes from. So, for example, Saturn was transiting my first house, but Saturn comes from the ninth. So it's about changing belief system about my own body or learning about who I am and so forth. You're gonna have to kind of put those together. And Saturn doesn't like the mask that we wear. So the rising sign shows the type of mask that we've got, and then it wants to remove it. It says it's just not necessarily whatsoever. And once we are able to kind of peel that off, then the reward can start coming. So Aries rising sign, enjoy your Saturn transit in the first house. But we are going to be moving on. And what happens for Pisces rising sign, meaning that you have got Saturn transiting your second house. This is for me in a way. On one hand, this is going to be an invitation to be a lot more careful with money. So this is the money management position. It says we're going to have to be a little bit more cautious about money matters. We don't necessarily need to kind of impulsively invest money into, let's say, stock market, or even when we go to the shop. Even when we go to the shop, Saturn wants us to look at the price tag. Let's compare and contrast. And maybe we can go for the cheaper ones. But simply, this could just talk to us about, I don't know, let's say I'm renting two properties at the same time. Do I need to be renting two properties? Because I don't know, every 6 months I spend a week somewhere. You know what? I'm just going to cancel that lease. So it wants us to look at our expenditures a lot closer and then using the common sense around it. So that's the money management part of it. But I also believe that I don't think Saturn would like in the second house to kind of it doesn't want you to become stingy. It doesn't want you to stop spending money on yourself. It wants you to be a little bit more responsible, though. So, because often Saturn in the second house is going to be about building self-esteem. And let's be frank, some of us, especially with Pisces rising sign, when we feel beautiful, when we look apart and so forth, then it makes us feel good. But do I need 10 pairs of shoes or just that one pair that is a perfect fit, you know, and so on? So budgeting, cutting out all unnecessary expenses. And also this could represent that you start focusing on your long-term security and a little bit less focused on short-term pleasure. Like, okay, so this luxurious holiday gives me, a boost for a week, but it doesn't make a huge difference for the next 2.5 years. So what is giving me that long-term security? Right. And then if we want to do investments, this is telling us that we should be doing that for the long run rather than the short term. So if you are planning things like, oh, I'm going to be making my own astrological software, I think that's a great idea because you are going to be benefiting from that maybe 5, 7 years down the line, right? But if I think that daily trading is a good option with Saturn, I don't think so. Then it can lead to losses, it could lead to grief and sorrow, right? And also, what do I owe? What do I need? What do I not need? These could be some certain type of questions. So Saturn is the planet of inventory. I'm going to have to do an inventory of what I have. Let's say who owes me money, who I owe money to, because potentially they are going to start knocking on my door. And, with Saturn in the sign of Aries, I feel like it is about working hard to be more appreciated, or what gives you pleasure if you have built a secure life for your family. It could be a topic, so you can be working extremely hard for that. Saturn definitely, I started thinking 29 years ago when what happened when Saturn was in the sign of Aries in my second house. And I made really good money. actually, but I was working non-stop. And to be frank, there was always competitions in the restaurant. I won them pretty much all, so I got a lot of bonus. I made really good money, but I didn't have social life. I kind of like made a sacrifice, and Saturn is connected to sacrifices. And maybe you're gonna have to sacrifice something like whatever Saturn rules in your natal chart or whatever, wherever Saturn comes from in the natal chart. If we want to build that secure life, secure financial, or we need the self-worth. Right. And I think also maybe we're going to start thinking about what our values are or what are the meanings or the like a deeper examination of your values, what truly matters beyond material possession. Saturn has got planetary joy in the 12th house. So it's not just about the physical world. Actually, it is about the integration between the physical and the spiritual world. Also, this could talk to you about figuring out what your talents are and then taking them more seriously. And how can I turn my talent into coins? Like, you know what? Saturn, it's the patience, right? And Aries is unfortunately an impatient sign. But gradually, we're going to have to be kind of like practicing what our talents are. We're going to have to be mastering it. And the reward is going to be coming in the next 2.5 years. With Aries, we take initiatives. So you cannot be passive about it. You must be driven. You must be focused. I think you must temper down your anger and frustration as well. And I think you must stand up for your own values also. Having to be a little bit more patient or having to learn to have the courage to get moving, to get going, is also a message for you, Pisces rising sign. And potentially, are you ready not to hold on to your fears anymore? Because with the second house, that's a safety blanket. And often that gets removed from our life. I mean, with the second house, unfortunately, it could be an end of a relationship as well. Eighth sign away from the seventh. It highly depends on where Saturn comes from in your natal chart. But do you have those self-doubts, like I'm not talented enough? Now, the end of the relationship can be happening in the second house, especially if while Saturn was in your first house and then you had pretty much you felt limited by the partner or you have been together with someone but kind of like you were a victim of that person or you kind of felt like that maybe this is suffocating or something was missing, then Saturn in the sign of Aries in the second house could really talk to us about the end of relationship as well. Something that might be feeling restrictive and then I kind of want to get out of it. And also, this is kind of like risk assessment position. So Saturn says, be careful, look at every single angle. And then, of course, the sign of Aries is about risks. So we're going to have to do risk assessment before we jump into something. Let's move on to Aquarius rising sign. Saturn will be transiting your third house. And I think on one hand, it says we have to be brave enough to speak up, to speak our own truth. We're going to have the courage to have those serious talks with our parents, with our siblings, with our neighbors, or even friends as well. I think you're going to have a different thought process about what you want to achieve and how I want to get there. Maybe the old ways are not working for you. Of course, Saturn has transited your second house. So this is about potentially you might have gone through financial struggles or potentially you have been working on stabilizing your finances. Now, Saturn in the sign of Aries says, okay, we mastered the talent. It's time to start something with it in the third house. If we had financial struggles, because we were not able to tame our finances, expenditures, and so forth, then Saturn in the sign of Aries might suggest that I'm going to have to sell something. I'm gonna have to invest into a course, for example, so that I can start kind of like learning something, taking my studies to the next level, so I can start generating income out of it. So you have to learn to think a little bit more carefully and not fire the words kind of like out of your mouth. You have to be more kind of educated when it comes to like certain type of, let's say, finances or in a way demographic research. The demographic research can be connected to the second house. Let me tell you why. Because that's a Taurus house where moon is exalted. So often money comes from the fact that we are able to kind of like tap into the consciousness of our clients and people's needs and so forth. And then once we figure those out, then we're going to start kind of like building that social media channel up, for example, in the third house. Also, this is telling us that we're going to have to be a little bit more of an open mindset as well about all the changes that we are experiencing in the world. Yeah, potentially online you would be reading that you have to sort out your relationship with your siblings and neighbors. And maybe with Aries, you're going to have to initiate those. And I completely agree with these statements. But I think there is a little bit of a deeper meaning to that. The third house is often actually a house of choice, like having two bad choices, but I'm still having to choose, or having a good choice and a bad choice, but both of them have got advantages. Saturn will want us to be very careful about which choice I'm gonna go with. I mean, with this Saturn in your third, there is a strong focus on the mind, but we can be focusing on our own doubts as well. We can be overthinking, and due to lack of confidence. Examine your confidence level the last couple of years because second house is connected to self-worth and confidence. If you had the hint of self-confidence issues in the second, it can get magnified in the third house. Simply, you're going to have to start bringing that back into your life. Maybe you're going to have to start thinking about how I have tried to achieve my goals. And we're going to have to come up with some ideas and kind of crack on them. Also, building strong communication skills could be a message for you. Or you want to be achieving some intellectual goals, but be very realistic about it. Like, okay, I'm going to be sending, or be consistent about it. Like, I'm going to be sending out a newsletter each week. No missing that. 90% of the times you're going to have to send that and you're going to have to do it on the same day. So consistency is a big key with that. And also, maybe you're going to have to start working on making your local connections stronger as well, like more meaningful connections. I don't need to be friends with everyone, but I need to have kind of like a support system within the local community, and that would be important. With Saturn, we practice. So with the third house, we can be practicing to communicate in a much calmer way. Or I'm going to be practicing my writing abilities. Like, often with Saturn in the third house, it is said that you could become a writer and completely agree with it. But you're going to get a lot of no's. But at one point, you're gonna get the big yes. And usually that's a big yes. So, but it's all about practice. Um, I think it was the writer of Harry Potter who got refused several times, and she's got Saturn in the third house. Look at where the person is right now, right? So it's amazing with Saturn in the third house what you can achieve. Because with Aries, we never give up, right? And that's the secret here. And potentially no need to be angry anymore. We don't need to be kind of like feeding the mind with anger and frustration. Try to say goodbye to them. I'm not gonna get into any type of like tensions with my siblings and neighbors pointless. Maybe you're going to have to walk away. And maybe you are having some financial arguments, for example, with the siblings, with the neighbors. Like, I don't know, why did you build that fence there? That's my property. No, it is my property, and so forth. We can experience something like that. And one of the problems, I think, with Saturn in Aries in the third is that we can get bogged down with depressive thoughts. Make sure you find something. Maybe it's something that you need to study. Maybe it's a little bit of a PR and marketing skills, even IT skills that you might need to study to boost your communication channels. So good luck for you. And let's move on to um, Capricorn rising sign. Because Capricorn, you are going to be experiencing the Saturn transit in your fourth house. I think it's a crucial time for you, Capricorn, because Saturn in the fourth house really wants you to examine the roots. Saturn is known as the great taskmaster, the lord of karma. It represents discipline, responsibility, limitations, challenges, but also this is about maturity and reward as well. And the fourth house is connected to your home, family, roots, emotional boundaries, foundations, childhood, endings as well, but also kind of like the caregivers, the parents, the inner security. So it really feels like that maybe you want to be somehow restructuring and reframing your home connections and your family environment. This might be when you have to be responsible, for example, and then you're gonna have to take care of parents, especially if Saturn showed signs of medical issues of parents in the third house, because the third house is six sign away from the 10th. So that's a parental medical house. But also, this could indicate that your emotional foundation will be tested, like that inner security, that emotional roots, the old patterns needs to go. Childhood experiences and issues, unresolved family feuds and drama needs to be spotted and dealt with, or at least it requires your attention. It needs to be addressed. So I think it's about the emotional garbage and burden needs to be removed because something that emotionally destabilized you. And Saturn will want, because it's the Saturn is the exalted ruler of Libra. So we're gonna have to find balance there. And sometimes you're gonna have to say no to people that we live together with, and sometimes you're gonna have to give them the green light. And also, maybe you are going to be experiencing challenges in your home environment. Something can break down, something needs to be fixed up. Potentially, I want to move, I want to sell a property. Maybe if we are selling a property that comes with delays and so on. But also, I mean, even there could be government rule changes around real estate, land, or properties. So watch out for those as well. Or if you have been building a house, there could be complications around that. Or simply you are looking for a place to settle down. You are looking for a place to kind of retire, to get old. Kind of like this is your final move type of energy. But surely there could be maintenance issues that you might want to be, doing. And also, this is highly possible that you are a little bit more reserved, and I just want to be in a remote island. I want to be secluded from all the buzz and so on. So I'm considering to move to the countryside. And I kind of like that too. But Aries is encouraging you to take initiatives. It is telling you to be assertive and dealing with all these family matters. We don't need to be sweeping these under the carpet anymore. And this is also about developing inner strength, confronting your kind of like nightmares. With the fourth house, we go to sleep. That's the midnight energy. So we are in bed. And that's why it is also connected to things that we are afraid of. So a lot of deep, deep introspection and looking at what makes us happy. I think that's going to be a super important question or topic for a lot of us. So Saturn can bring you growth if you build a stronger foundation. And obviously that comes by addressing challenges. Also, if we are more mature and responsible, there could be um, it could bring you growth. Like, okay, I'm going to be saving a little bit of the money, for example, to be able to get that retirement home that I've always wanted to. And surely this could be talking to you about independence as well. What makes me happy is if I am independent. So often with Aries, we're going to have to cut out family members out of our life. We're going to have to say goodbye to certain type of family matters. Also, this could talk to you, like I mentioned, conquering the fears and so forth. So these are some of the major topics that you might be experiencing with Saturn being there. But often this is an indication of finding the fundamental cause of everything. And that's why this is all about digging deep. You can be looking at your ancestral karma. You might want to be looking at because Saturn is the family legacy. It's not just a parental planet, it's family legacy, things that have been passed down from generation to generation. And also, it's not just the fourth house that gets activated, but your 10th house too, meaning that you might want to be working from home, for example. You've got additional responsibilities at home because I'm a parent, for example, and so on. And then how to navigate my professional life and my family life at the same time. Maybe all we want is to get the parental support, for example. That all we want is just to be protected by them. And if it hasn't happened, then potentially we might want to be communicating about it. Maybe we have been too attached to the past. And although Saturn in the fourth house surely asks you to examine the past, but it shouldn't be kind of like taking over your life. I think surely Saturn in the sign of Aries does tell you that self-sufficiency is super important. And if you have been dependent on your parents, this Saturn transit actually can take someone away from you as well. Maybe maybe the parents are going to be nudging you a little bit, like grow up, move out, get a girlfriend, and all those type of stuff. And it could be really annoying. Aries gets annoyed super quickly. Because with Saturn, we get the tough love from others. So that's even possible. And you might want to be building a house, you might be buying a land and building something on it, or you want to be rebuilding, renovate your home environment. But I recommend that you should be doing a lot of kind of like therapy related to family matters. That's going to be something that potentially takes you really, really far away. So good luck, and let's move on to um, Sagittarius rising. So for you, Saturn, Sagittarius is going to be going through your fifth house, which on one hand does tell you that no more, we're going to have a more serious approach to life. So Saturn is the planet of seriousness and discipline, and it is reminding us that we're going to have to grow up a little bit. We're going to have to be potentially having a little bit less fun than we used to, and we're going to have to focus on, for example, taking seriously sport, hobbies or a romantic life, or even we're going to have to be a responsible parent, or we're going to have to take care of our own business because the fifth house can represent self-employment. I mean, Saturn is connected to delays and lessons as well. So in the fifth house, this could indicate that unfortunately hard work comes first and then the reward comes after. Or we're gonna have to work hard and then we're gonna have to be the playing part comes after. And yes, also it could indicate that we feel restricted in these areas. Saturn is going to teach us a little bit of a patience, a perseverance here, or how to commit, for example, in our romantic connections. I think Saturn, because it is also about foundations, it wants something to be solid. So in the fifth house, it would indicate that we're gonna have to take seriously our creativity, for example. We're gonna have to have a more responsible approach to our relationships. We cannot just kind of like, sorry for my French, but dick around. We're gonna have to be able to settle down a little bit. We're gonna have to be able to dedicate ourselves to creative pursuit, or we're gonna have to dedicate ourselves to our children's well-being. But if we have got needy children, then we're gonna have to be able to say no to them as well, and we're gonna have to make them realize that it's time to grow up. I mean, surely there is this creative discipline going on, and you can have this very strong urge to initiate a creative project. But Saturn says you're going to have to be very methodical about it. You're going to have to be able to take calculative risk, not just jumping into something without kind of like paying for the consequences. I'm going to have to be walking this topic around a little bit. And also, I mean, this could talk to you about that. Okay, I'm going to have my first child. I want to become a parent. I want to be kind of like taking this relationship a step further. So let's move together, or simply let's kind of like end this romantic connections also, because maybe we feel like that the partner is not responsible enough. And I think also because fifth house and Aries can be very impulsive, and then Saturn says become cautious about it. So somehow Saturn is trying to temper this area of your life a little bit. It is telling you to look before you leap because it can lead to consequences, and the price can be quite high. If you have been an artist, it could indicate, for example, a certain type of creative blocks. It could indicate self-doubt as well. Maybe you have got this kind of like pressure, for example, coming from the family that you are meant to be starting something with your life, to perform, to create something, to give birth, to get more serious. And of course, this is somehow a kind of like a burden as well. And also, maybe like there is a lot of responsibility connected to your children. So maybe you are concerned about their education, or you are concerned about how they are leading their own life, who they get together with. And also, maybe you are somehow feeling restricted, like I cannot be as spontaneous. I cannot have as much fun as I used to. I mean, spontaneity is very fifth house, and especially with Aries, that's very energetic sign. So, and then Saturn says, we cannot do that anymore. Or simply you have not been able to let loose. It highly depends on if you have got any planets in the sign of Aries and where the ruler is. And then Saturn says, sometimes you're going to have to let loose also. Fifth house is a fixed or it's a succeeding house, so it's connected to finances also. So financial risk assessment is a topic here. The fifth house is connected to speculative gains, so it is talking to us about investment, but typically the fifth house is more to do with short-term investments. And so it says focus on the gains, the long-term gains, rather than just making a little bit of a quick cash tomorrow, and then we might not be able to make it later on. But surely this is about mastering your creativity, giving birth to a creative product as well. Building long-lasting relationship is a huge one here. Yes, there might have been challenges in your romantic life, but now we can focus on it. We can attract someone mature, a grown-up, and then we can start establishing a life together. We can become a lot more like a responsible parent. Um, and sometimes that starts just by setting clear boundaries with them or creating a more self-disciplined environment, looking after their growth, kind of like fostering them somehow. And this could also talk to you about that you are about to develop self-reliance, building up your confidence level, taking responsibility for your own actions, discovering your inner strength, discovering something that you didn't know you had, because the fifth house is also connected to talent as well. I think the fifth house is a succeeding house. It has got a lot to do with planning, and Saturn is quite strategic as well. So it also feels like that this time around, you're going to have to be planning for the long term rather than the short term goals, by balancing out having joy, being yourself, being you, being authentic, doing things that you truly enjoy. Because the fifth house planetary joy is Venus. So the key there, the key success factor in the fifth house is that I'm going to be doing something that I truly enjoy. I would also say that with the fifth house, some negative stuff could be popping up here as well. A death of a parent. That's eight sign away from the 10th house. But also, this could talk to you about that you might not have been able to express yourself fully, and then now you get all these ideas how to do that. And then also maybe you have been ridiculed as a child, and then now you have to kind of like overcome the stage fright, and I'm gonna be able to put myself out there. And also, I would say that another negative manifestation of this is that one, like if we are in a relationship, one is ready to settle down, make a commitment, and the other one is kind of like not ready for it. And then, of course, we might want to be like, we might become demanding with this. We are pushing the person that, yes, I need that engagement ring, and so on. And maybe Saturn says just be a little bit patient about it because the time is coming, but maybe we just need to help the person. But simply you can feel like this is something where I'm wasting my time, and I don't want to be doing that anymore because I need something or someone more serious. So good luck in the next 2.5 years, and let's move on to Scorpio rising sign. For you, Scorpio, the transit is going to be taking place in your sixth house. Saturn always brings discipline, structure, and responsibility to any part of our chart. And the sixth house is connected to daily routines, work, health, service industries, and also how we manage conflicts. Now, of course, talking about conflicts, usually with Aries, we manage our conflicts with anger and frustration. We might be snapping at someone, depending, of course, of the position of your Mars and planets in the sixth house. But Saturn says we're going to have to be a little bit more diplomatic about it. I think also this would indicate that it's time to kind of create a better time management, for example, at work, focusing on productivity. I mean, this could really talk to you about a super busy period of time as well, where you're going to have to learn to rest, to take a little bit of a time off, to empower like the co-workers, employees to do a better job. And this could simply talk to you about not being able to hire the right candidates. Like I'm so desperate to hire five people, but Saturn says, don't hire just anyone. Make sure that you ask the right questions and then, to get a quality employee, because that's going to be bringing you a lot of growth. I mean, even your work can be under like scrutiny. So someone might be dumping a lot of responsibility on you, demanding towards you, or actually kind of like doing a performance review on you, and then you don't get the feedback that you think you deserve. And then where does that lead? I'm frustrated. I want to leave the job. I feel limited. I feel restricted. And we potentially might start looking for new work. Now, of course, you might just simply find yourself taking on more duties. You might feel pressure at home, at work. And then that's the reason why time management becomes super important here. Let's make sure that we are super productive, but at the same time, we don't work more than 8 hours, though, because it could lead to health challenges. So Saturn here might want you to lose weight, to kind of implement certain type of routines in your life, such as sport activities, losing weight, and so forth. And also this could talk to, I mean, Ceres is here as well. The cycle starts between Saturn and Ceres here also. So prevention and self-care is super important. Do not neglect your health during this period of time, because with Saturn, things can become chronic, for example. Especially Saturn-related problems are lack of something, like lack of iron within the body, or it could represent lack of vitality, not having enough strength, weakened immune system, and so forth. Now, from a service and duty point of view, this Saturn is going to ask you to offer service to others, to be somehow useful. And you can have that desire that I want to be more useful to society. We can feel, the need to be somehow useful, to do something for the society, to be responsible, in a way to take care of others as well, like being part of a community, for example. But it can also feel like, because the sixth house traditionally represents enemies. So someone who annoys us, for example, at work, brings us challenges. And Saturn can bring these issues to the forefront, and we're going to have to be strategic about it. We're going to have to be dealing with that, but in a diplomatic way. It could also indicate that you want to be pioneer at work, or you want to be this kind of like pioneer in the medical industry, because Aries is the leader. So I want to be a role model to my kids. I want to be a role model to, my parents and so forth. So this is about initiating a new method, being ambitious about a health program. I'm going to go to a sport retreat and all those type of stuff. But I'm disciplined while I'm initiating stuff. So this is not just about jumping into something, even though we've got this strong urge to start, let's say, this health routine. But Saturn will force us to slow down, because we're going to have to be building up the strength towards that journey. And also, I would say that, I mean, this could really indicate competitive situations at work as well. And you're going to have to put on the boxing glove. You're going to have to be perseverant. So, like, who is going to get promoted? There could be like an announcement made like that, and you are pushing for it. And yes, you're going to have the enemies. They're going to try to cut you out of that promotion, opportunities. What are you going to do about it? With the sixth house, we fix something. Often there is a lot of problems popping up here. So dealing with the work related conflicts, health issues, you're going to have to adapt to a more of a, kind of like cutting out the BS and the nonsense type of things. Let's just be seeing things super clearly. Some of the, positive ones, like building a strong work ethic, kind of like rewriting the rules at work, uh, promoting efficiency within the work environment, promoting productivity, establishing healthy habits, mastering problem-solving skills. Kind of like it's a little bit of an apprenticeship type of feeling. So I'm going to be, going back to the bottom to kind of work my way up because maybe previously I haven't done that journey in the right way. And also, I'm become a pioneering, like a leader within a service industry. So it feels like that there is a lot of productivity involved here. Just make sure that you take care of the self as well. So let's have a look at what happens when transit Saturn goes through your seventh house in the sign of Aries. Well, we did make a video with Tsweti connected to how Saturn in Aries affects a relationship department. So I recommend listening to that video because there is a lot of valuable information in there for you. But here I'm just going to be giving you a little bit of a breakdown, a summary. Remember that Saturn is the taskmaster. So it wants to bring discipline and structure to your relationships. Often we're going to have to commit to a hard work. We're going to have to be kind of like laying a new foundation to your relationship. Maybe there have been burdens and obstacles that you might need to be able to overcome. Remember that Saturn was in your sixth house previously, so what could be happening here is that you had struggle in work, you had no daily life activities together, and so forth, and that could become kind of like magnified in your seventh house now. But also, you need to be looking at whether you can be committing to these partnerships as well. Saturn is all about where to rebuild a solid foundation. So this is going to be in your partnerships. Often we just think of romantic connections with the seventh house, but this is something to do with business partnership, one-to-one connections with others. Saturn brings a lot of lessons, usually through challenges or delays. And maybe it is asking us that someone needs to be able to kind of grow up, to get mature, to bring that stability into this partnership. The other part of the video that I recommend listening to is actually something to do with Saturn transit through the first house. The reason why, because we are talking about polarities here. Meaning that if the seventh house is affected, then your first house is affected as well. So, altogether, this could really talk to you about restructuring your relationship. Saturn somehow demands that your the romantic, the business partnership, and so on, are rebuilt more on a solid, realistic foundation. When the relationship lacks commitment or we are not responsible for our own actions, because it's also about maintaining your individuality through the relationship. So having to make sacrifices as well as having to stand the ground firmly so that you don't get overshadowed by others. And maybe you haven't been able to commit. Some of you actually, because Saturn is super positive planet as well, it represents commitment. It represents the glue within the relationship. So some of you will get married. Some of you will decide that, you know what, we want to take the relationship to the next level. There is going to be this strong push towards making your relationship more mature, more reliable. But of course, there could be a lot of self-doubt as well at the same time. Meaning that, can I trust this person? Is this person reliable? Is this person kind of grown up enough to spend the rest of my life with? And maybe you have been a little bit of a loner. You never wanted to get married because Aries is, for example, something to do with individuality and it's a freedom protector sign as well at the end of the day. And then now the partner is popping the question to you. I think also it's about developing self-reliance within the partnership. So this could talk to you about there is an emphasis on the independence, as mentioned earlier, but potentially this might be asking you to be more self-sufficient, or you want the partner to be more self-sufficient. There is a need here to be able to stand up for your own needs and creating boundaries within the relationship. Psychologically speaking, this could really talk to you about having to confront your relationship fears. Why do I have got commitment issues? Why am I not able to? Why am I scared of getting married? Why do I have got these fears around intimacy, vulnerability, or even rejection as well? And with Aries, there is no kind of like hiding it anymore. This is about face them directly. And also, this is about taking initiatives in the relationship as well. So, definitely, the Aries energy is encouraging you to take a proactive approach, a courageous approach to resolving relationship issues, or simply it asks you to initiate a new one. Yes, it could bring a lot of conflict as well. I mean, Saturn is mature, but Aries is a childlike energy, often aggressive. We can be projecting the anger onto others, and of course, others can do the same as well. Because Saturn is the family legacy, it's kind of like inherited anger issues that could be popping up here. And if we are unable to create the boundaries, then the entire relationship can actually crumble and collapse. There could be legal matters that you might be involved with. So, for example, let's say that you are about to collaborate, partnering up with someone, and Saturn says it requires a lot of careful planning. We're going to have to do the due diligence here. We cannot just get into a partnership because we might get disappointed later on. And it might lead to a legal case. And it's not always easy to win with Saturn when it's in the seventh house. I would like to also mention that as well. And maybe Saturn will be going retrograde on early degrees as well. We've got Neptune there. So the other possibility is that your existing business partnership are undergoing a certain type of a reassessment as well. And that could lead to dispute, for example. But we're going to have to be tactical about it. We're going to have to be coming up with a strategy and then fixing it. Saturn is the planet of reality check. So have I been kind of like passive in my relationship? You're gonna have to look into the mirror, as well as did I have unrealistic expectations towards the partner? We're gonna have to be reviewing that as well. Also, we're gonna have to be able to be more patient towards the partnership as well. Maybe the partner is going through a phase in their lives. We're gonna have to be able to show willingness that I'm ready to work this through. I mean, Saturn is about work. So we're gonna have to work on our relationships. Definitely the accountability, as in, you know what, we need to tango. We have both made mistakes, so how to resolve that. And self-reflection I mentioned, the strategic action is also mentioned. So there is a pretty much the work cut out for you when it comes to your relationship department. Saturn will be strong here in a way because it's angular. So when a planet is angular, you're gonna see a lot more energy coming from a planet than, for example, in the sixth house, for example. Also, maybe you want to be looking at whether you have put up a wall in front of you and it's kind of like a really strong one, or you haven't put up a wall yet and you haven't protected the self from these wrong people that you hang out with. And of course, it can lead to depressions. We can start panicking with this aspect as well, in a way that, oh my days, I'm getting old, I'm still single, I don't have a child, and so forth. So Saturn tells you that, okay, if you want a partner, put yourself out there, become visible, but make sure that you choose the right partner. We don't need to be like jumping into a relationship immediately. And Saturn is the law of karma as well, or the lord of karma. So it means that wise investments into a partnership, business opportunities, as well as a relationship will pay off later on because Saturn rewards the hard work. Let's move on to Virgo rising sign. Dear Virgo, this transit is going to be taking place in your eighth house. Well, this is going to be marking a period of transformation in your life. Profound changes, a lot of reality check here. And these reality checks are connected to vulnerability, fear, shared resources, psychological complexes, and even mortality. You don't need to be afraid with Saturn that it's going to kill you and then. But it does mention, though, that we only have got one life, the one that you remember, of course. Um, like, we have got only one right now, and don't waste your time. You need to be overcoming your obstacles and fears in life to create something magical. But you're gonna have to do the work. You're gonna have to do the inner work as well. You're gonna have to be looking at your karmic experiences. You're gonna have to start spotting patterns where you went wrong in your life. Because it could give you the feeling that I'm getting old. Like I'm not as fast as I used to be. And then we are still we are thinking, how can I get that strength back? And here, typically, we need emotional strength. But Aries is a very physical sign as well. So, therefore, the physical strength could be something that you might want to be able to kind of think about. And we don't need to be jumping into the hot water immediately. We're going to have to wait a little bit to cool down. We're going to need the long-term planning here. And therefore, when it comes to the shared resources and finances, yeah, this could talk to you about that your partner is going to be a little bit limited, for example, from a financial perspective, and you're going to have to step up. You're going to have to be kind of like taking care of financially of others. And it's not just your partner. It could be a parent. It could be a child and so forth, kind of like having to help them. But Saturn at the same time says that I need to be realistic about it as well, especially in the sign of Aries, because I've got my needs too. I've got my expenses also, so I cannot just give everything away to others. There could be delays connected to joint finances, or it could indicate that I'm struggling to pay my debts, for example, and the bank is going to be knocking on my doors due to the fact, for example, that the partner had lost their job, and then we are unable to kind of like make ends meet. This is also talking to us about unexpected expenses that could be popping up. So, what the Saturn want here is to have a more realistic, responsible, and disciplined approach to financial situations. By the way, I do recommend listening to Saturn transit in the second house as well, because we are talking about polarities here. So, easily some of the topics could be popping up from Saturn transit in the second house. Now, the eighth house is so much connected also to intimacy and relationships as well. So here we're going to have to be able to create a stronger foundation to our relationship, kind of like being able to be more intimate, being able to create an emotional bond with someone. And Saturn is serious. And the eighth house is research and examination. So we're going to have to do the serious examination of my close relationships. Do I want to end them? Do I want to carry on? Can this relationship be saved? Do I hold on to it for such a long time? Or maybe do I potentially need to let go of it? Because your own power has been given away to someone else. Surely in your relationships, you're going to have to be redefining your boundaries. Maybe we're going to have to be looking at the unhealthy attachments. Maybe there have been kind of like this because this is the axis of give and share. So it can feel like that I have put so much work into this relationship and it's not really reciprocated. Even it could highlight challenges with not just with the finances of the spouse, but it could bring in challenges connected to their health as well. Because the second house is how we are kind of like maintaining our physical body, second from the seventh. And maybe this is the reason why they are unable to work, for example. But when we do the work, when we face our limitations and our challenges, then we're going to be reborn. There is going to be a new sense of you. And maybe you have been afraid of being alone. And if you do the work, this is going to be a super good time for you. Yes, this is also connected to death. So yes, it could bring the death of a parent as well. Yes, it could indicate that you are going to be you are going to be experiencing a near to death scenario also, which is gonna come with an awakening. Something in your life is not serving you anymore. So Saturn is demanding you to let go of something. It's a compulsory literature. Sometimes it comes with griefs and sorrows and pain. Because somehow it is out of date. I mean, out of date. It has to go, you know. And then you kind of like are reborn, and then you're gonna become this phoenix bird, and you're gonna get your independency back. Eighth house is very hidden as well. So it could relate to secrets. You're gonna discover a lot of secrets about the self, about the past, about your own compulsions, obsessions, because the eighth house is very obsessive as well. And we can fall in love with occultism also. So it looks like hidden truth is coming to light slowly but surely. Is it always a nice piece of truth? Not so much, but it's going to be very enlightening. I mean, from a relationship point of view, you can figure out, that someone cheated on you. You can figure out someone's psychological complexes. And even with Saturn here, you can do a lot of spiritual work also, which is going to be creating freedom for you. Uh, I mean, natally Saturn actually in the eighth house, ancient astrologers said that those are usually people who live a very long life. It doesn't mean, though, that they are not going to be experiencing some health issues and so forth here and there, but it is said that the body is super resilient. And but from a transit point of view, Saturn does connect, having to have more of a disciplined approach to our medical matters. You might be wondering, yeah, Victor, but the medicality is very sixth house. Yes, but there is an inconjunction going on towards the rising sign right now for you, and inconjunctions could relate to health matters. It could relate to stress-related things. So something might be stressing you out. That's the reason why with this aspect, you're going to have to be able to focus on your well-being, emotional, mental, as well as the physical. So I feel like this is going to talk to us about financial restructuring for you, creation of a more of a solid and responsible approach to assets and finances. Maybe you're going to be doing long-term investments. I think it's about a deeper intimacy bond. There are challenges potentially within the relationship, but it can be fixed by just building a stronger bond and going back to basics so that we rebuild the entire relationship. And it also feels like, especially with the Aries element, that you need to go through this personal empowerment. You've got those fears, we're going to have to let them go. They don't serve us anymore, right? And that is going to be giving us this rebirth moment. You're going to have to do a lot of like a soul purpose research in a way. You're gonna have to be doing this self-discovery somehow. And hopefully, this is going to reignite some of your passions that you used to love. But it comes with a lot of self-analysis for you. And and overall, I would say that maybe also we need to be remembering that we are all aging. But what do we do to kind of prevent that? I also would say that maybe you would like to get a mortgage or you would like to get a loan. Typically, it's not always a good idea to go for a loan with Saturn going through the second house. But if you have no other choice, of course, I'm not going to say not to do that, but it can be a no that you get, or these might not be the greatest conditions that you get. And on top of that, this could even indicate that it's going to take a lot longer to pay it back than you anticipated. Also, kind of like, this transit often indicates political matters as well. Like, for example, Saturn going through the sixth house often represents it's difficult to find quality employees. Um, but in Saturn in the eighth house could indicate that the company that I work for is kind of like going through this credit crunch, for example, and therefore there is a lot more pressure coming to us. This could also indicate that I have been too reliant on someone else's finances, and then now pretty much they're gonna kind of cut it off in a way. So that's also a possibility. All right, let's move on to Saturn transit in the ninth house, and that's for Leo rising sign. With Saturn in your ninth house, actually, it has got a natural trine towards your rising sign, which can give you a lot of opportunities, especially in the ninth house, which is the house of opportunities. But Saturn says here that you're gonna have to be like it's a work opportunity. It's the opportunity to study something that you later on can make money out of when Saturn goes through the 10th house. But also, it is talking to you about having to be cautious. We are not taking on every single opportunity that is kind of like presented to us. Sometimes you're going to have to be able to consult with a teacher, a father figure, a mentor, a guru, and so forth to get their views on things as well so that you can make the best possible decision. Yeah, I mean, this could talk to you about you having confrontations with a guru, a father figure, and so forth. Maybe you have got this teacher, for example, who is pushing you somehow to be more independent, but they might not do it in a respectful manner, for example. But also, Aries in the ninth house is kind of like going for these opportunities. We are rushing forward to get ahead in life, and Saturn slows you down. It says you need to have a systematic approach, a step-by-step guide that you need to be following. Otherwise, that opportunity will kind of like disappear. And it also feels like that because, Aries is about taking actions. But Saturn demands you to be more responsible. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay the consequences. So there is a lot of reality check when it comes to all the opportunities that we've got around us. And I also believe that this transit wants you to build inner strength as well, though. So meaning that um, if you are kind of like looking around you and then seeing that opportunities are presented to us every single moment, but we didn't have the courage to go for it. So this transit is surely encouraging you to go for opportunities because maybe you have been quite reluctant to do so due to fears and so forth. So there is this exploration there. I mean, imagine that you have got the opportunity to relocate to a beautiful country where you can be the true version of yourself. But due to certain type of obligations and fears and so forth, you are unsure to do that. when it comes to that ninth house, which is also connected to higher education and your belief system, maybe we're gonna have to be laying our belief system to a completely new foundation. Maybe we're gonna have to have a more spiritual approach to things. Maybe you're gonna have to say goodbye to some long-held belief systems that are actually holding you back from growth. And also, maybe you have had the belief system of, like a child. Aries is a very toddler type of energy. And then Saturn says, we're going to have to grow up now. We're going to have to take life seriously. I'm the only one who can create these opportunities. I shouldn't be reliant on others and so forth. But you can start questioning the belief systems as well. Like, is it right? Is it wrong? You have had something that was super established, a certain type of a belief system, and but you have got experiences happening in your life that makes you question or something to do with disappointment as well at the same time. So therefore, you seem to be reevaluating something that you took for granted previously, or people who are sharing advices, the teacher who is teaching you, and so forth. I mean, this could indicate certain type of delays when it comes to relocation or studies. You might need to repeat an exam. You might not be able to travel, let's say in July, to somewhere. It could happen, but maybe you've got some extra bits and bobs to complete before you go on that journey. It's surely about, with Saturn trining your rising sign, it's surely about learning like a deeper understanding of who you are. It's about self-mastery. And that's why potentially we need to take courses, maybe spiritual courses, maybe whatever course you want, pretty much. Also, often the ninth house is connected to kind of like father figures as well. But for me, these are the mentors and the teacher father figures, really. And this could indicate that they are going to be giving you quite a tough love. They are going to be giving you a lot of lessons. Um, and that is all in the name of self-discovery and growth. This could indicate actually legal matters as well, like you would like to obtain a visa and then you don't get the visa, and then you're gonna have to kind of like reapply for it or appeal against the decision and so forth. You might want to take a legal service from someone, because the ninth house people are the well-educated, well-read, well-traveled people, basically people who have got more knowledge than us. And we always find that one person who has more knowledge than us, right? So it doesn't mean that we are not intelligent at all. And usually meeting these people gives us spiritual growth. Maybe because you have had a lot of struggles in your life while Saturn went through your eighth house. And then now I need that person who is going to show me the light. The ninth house is the planetary joy of the sun. So it is so much connected to enlightenment as well. But it all comes through the deeper understanding of your life purpose. You are looking for the meaning to life, and Saturn will grant you this, but also forces you as well at the same time. Maybe you have to have the courage to act on your belief system as well. Maybe you have been a people pleaser and then now it's no more anymore. Maybe you have been very traditional. You had these very traditional views or systems that you created. This is actually asking you then to open up your horizon. But we don't need to go overboard. It's very much about a structured and practical approach to it. We're gonna do it step by step. You're gonna have to take seriously your studies as well, or otherwise you are going to get pretty much the bad grades in a way. Even it could indicate that you are going to be having, let's say, if you're a teacher, then it's an increased demand of the job that you do. It could indicate that if you travel a lot, I mean, at the end of the day, this could actually indicate that you are going to feel the need to kind of slow down a little bit with all these travels because it might be affecting my physical health. Maybe Saturn will be squaring, for example, a planet in your sixth house. This is all about planning the travels. Kind of like, okay, some travel. I mean, a friend of mine, for example, they have got this Saturn going through right now, the ninth house, and then they travel a lot. And then work started giving them actually more countries to look after. So he used to have 9 countries to look after, and now he has to be looking after 15 countries, which indicates a lot more travel. But there was no pay rise involved and so forth. So he's like, I'm going to have to talk about this to them because that's additional 6 countries. That's a lot of work. It means that I'm going to be staying away from my family for a lot more. Also, this is about the redefinition of your worldview as well. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the challenges could be coming through the fact that you have got these worldviews, and then the world has got a different worldview, and then therefore it's kind of like clashing, right? So, definitely, it's all about having to be a little bit more on the patient side, more on the understanding side as well, right? That, okay, people have got different views on things. I think you can really bump into really great teachers. You can learn a lot from your travels. It doesn't mean that you're gonna have all these obstacles on your long-term journey. I think it could feel like I'm going to these places and it can feel like fated. Maybe I even want to put down the roots if Saturn is somehow connected to your fourth house, for example. This is all about having an open mind to have more knowledge because 2.5 years time Saturn will go into your 10th house. This is the time for you to study something new so that in 2.5 years time you can actually become more public with something that you have learned about. So this is super important. Yes, your belief system might get questioned or tested. I don't think this is a time when you need to be sticking with certain type of belief systems. I think you're gonna have to open up your horizon to new possibilities. Okay, let's have a look at Cancer rising sign. Going to be going through your 10th house, which is the house of achievement and career. Now, when I was teaching about Saturn transiting the vocational houses in the Vocation Revisited course, I think we spoke about Saturn at least for a good 1.5 hours or even longer because I mean, there is a lot to mention, but I'm going to try to kind of like give you a brief summary here, what to expect with Saturn. First of all, Saturn naturally is a 10th house related energy. And Saturn also carries a lot of 12th house meanings as well because it has got planetary joy there. So it could talk to us about forced to be given up on a job. Sometimes due to health issues, sometimes because it feels like that the job is not necessarily the one that I want to be doing in the long run. Saturn measures the performance in your career house. So, how good of a job I do, how appreciated I am, but also um, kind of like weighing the pros and the cons around that job, that vocation. And maybe this has been not working out for you for a while, and Aries will prompt you to make a change. But also because Saturn is the planet of consequences, if you were not focused in the ninth house on your jobs, you didn't kind of gain more knowledge and so forth, then you can be paying the price in the 10th house, meaning that you can lose your job. You get a performance review, and then unfortunately, the performance review doesn't go necessarily too well. Somehow you have to do the inventory in your business. Is this business successful or not? And we have to be having a different approach to how to handle all these challenges. I mean, with this transit, your goals can be changing. You must change the strategies. We have to have a new approach to the business endeavors that we have been doing. And often we just want to keep up the pretend, like we want to keep the pretendance up, you know. So, no, I have to have this business because this was the first business I've ever made. But if it's not profitable, maybe I need to be able to walk away from it or do a complete makeover. This could indicate that there is going to be a lot of demand coming from the bosses as well. It can come with a lot of lack of a sense of direction as well. Like it feels like that this is not the right path for me. And it could come with promotion too, though. In a way, you get the chance to prove your worth, to prove that you can lead a team. And because Aries is a leadership sign, but it still comes with certain type of challenges though. So you get the promotion, but in a way you might run into some conflicts, some strength, kind of like testing situations as well. And also here, just watch out because you're gonna have to take actions, but you're gonna have to be accountable for your actions as well. So therefore, slow down a little bit about the business decisions that you make because you might have to be paying the price later on. So it's about making responsible decisions and being kind of like a grown up when it comes to these decisions, right? So, not like acting out of anger and so on. Um, I'm gonna give you a personal example. When Saturn went through my 10th house, I remember I fell in love and I couldn't focus on the job properly. And then I was asked to get my shit together. That's Saturn. I was asked to raise the bar, to raise my standards. That's Saturn as well. And often what happens is that you could have been super good previously and so forth, but whatever you did in the past, it doesn't matter anymore, right? So what matters is right now. And with Saturn, it's easy to live in the past, but Aries wants to move forward. Here, definitely, as mentioned earlier, promotion is on the table because the hard work pays off if we are committed to the business that we are running or to the job that we have been doing. And also, because Saturn is connected to perfectionism through the planetary joy to the 12th house, so I want to create the perfect business, but does that actually exist? Or maybe are you pessimistic at work? Or maybe you are feeling restricted by having a pessimistic, controlling boss, for example. So not being on the same page with the co-workers, with the bosses, that's also actually very possible. I mean, you can have a lot of workload as well. You can get a lot of pressure from the bosses, and not necessarily because you do a bad job. It could be just talking to us about a restructuring going on within the workplace, and unfortunately, they are going to be cutting costs, and they are not going to allow you to do certain type of things. And so forth. So often the question that pops up here is, am I willing to leave or am I going to end up getting fired? And I don't recommend leaving out of anger and frustration because Saturn is asking you to plan this out. Plan the growth of the business, plan the growth of your own as well. But Saturn is kind of like the troubleshooting planet as well. So you're going to have to fix up something at work. Simply, maybe they want to make changes within the work environment. And of course, that will be affecting you as an individual as well. So we can decide to organize, the rules and rewriting the handbooks and all this type of stuff could be coming up with this also. Saturn is the fear. So we can have a lot of fear of the loss of the job as well. Or we can be afraid that a new boss is about to be coming in, like the changes that are happening in the office. So, I mean, the fear is a very powerful emotions. And imagine scenarios where you are afraid of losing your job, so you're going to even work extremely hard. Where does that lead? You're not going to have much of a privacy. You're not going to be focusing on your family. So Saturn squaring your seventh house, opposing your fourth house, squaring your first house. So it could lead to health issues, relationship challenges, as well as you are unable to meet the expectations of the people that we live together with. Also, so balance is going to be a super important keyword here. And of course, Saturn is the exalted ruler of Libra. So it carries a lot of energy around having to balance something out. If you're looking for new jobs, with Saturn, often we get a lot of no's, a lot of refusals. And you just need to be thinking about it as this wasn't the right job for us. We might need to be able to build a new skill set and then try again instead of getting pretty much kind of like giving up or getting depressed about the fact that we cannot find a new job. I often also see with Saturn going through the 10th house that we've got a vision, a dream that, okay, I'm going to be a chiropractor, for example, but we don't have the right skill set yet. So that's why we need to be developing something. Also, maybe you just feel that you are too old to do this job. Also, this could indicate that you are kind of like thinking, not just making a change, but you have got a desire to make the change, but you procrastinate. Saturn has got the tendency to do that, often due to fear, often due to lack of confidence. Like imagine that you have got the sun there and then you've got a bone to pick with your boss, but I'm procrastinating it because what if I'm going to lose the job? So obviously planets in the 10th house could talk to you about further scenarios, of course. But Saturn is also the planet of timing. So on one hand, we have to time things. Secondly, it is also telling us that we might not be at the right time, at the right place, and so forth. So don't get disheartened if things are not necessarily working out immediately. Now, of course, there are some messages that you also receive here. We're going to have to be more mature about the business. We're going to have to take into a leadership role. This is about working extremely hard to get the recognition as a leader, for example. Maybe you have been working extremely hard and the last, maybe 14 years when Saturn was pretty much opposing your 10th house, and then now you are expecting to get the reward for it. So this could really talk to you about, yes, finally you get it. You're gonna get that promotion. You're gonna get that statue, that little golden statue that says you are the best, I don't know, employee ever, and so forth. But also the 10th house connects to parenting as well, though. So maybe you are a parent yourself, and then you kind of like support your children to study something, you support them on their career journey, and so forth. And also, this could talk to you about you becoming a parent yourself. Furthermore, unfortunately, this could talk to us about a loss of a parent as well. I would also say that actually I do love Saturn going through the 10th house because even though when I had Saturn going through the 10th house, yes, I did make an immature decision and then I just left work without any type of considerations. And then it took me a while to find a new one. Eventually, I found a lot better one. Though I would like to also mention that. But yeah, I wasn't careful enough, and then it did kind of like max out my finances a little bit within that 7, 8 month period while I was looking for a job. And yes, I did apply for jobs which I didn't have the skill set for entirely. But yeah, and then eventually I went back to the old field that I used to do. So that's also something that we might be doing with Saturn as well, though. So as mentioned previously, Saturn here easily can bring issues with parents as well. So maybe we see some health situation going through, or we're gonna have to be taking care of the mom, for example. For me, the 10th house is a little bit more to do with the mom rather than the father, but I'm gonna leave that with you. So it's going to be pretty much bringing you a major restructuring at work or new goals that you are going to be setting. Maybe because with Aries, this is a new start. So this is a chance to initiate a new business. This is a start to start a new job. But what are you going to change about the self so that you can become a better leader at that workplace? That's also going to be a topic because if you don't make any changes, then unfortunately the same issues are going to be coming back, like with your old business or old workplace and so forth. This, as I said, yeah, Saturn here, which is an authority figure, they will have a lot of demand. So a lot of demand at work. And maybe they are postponing things like the promotion, like something that got promised to you, and so forth. And also, what do you define? How do you define success? Maybe you're gonna have to be looking at that too. Why is it so important for me to be recognized? And even your reputation can be questioned here as well. Like, I thought you were good, but now I can see you are not that good and so forth. There could be something coming up like that. You can get into arguments with bosses, with parents as well. So just watch out for that too. And maybe it's the fear of being on a public stage. Like you are reluctant to put yourself out there, you are reluctant to become that leader and so forth. But somehow, in a way, you are forced to do so. So good luck. And then now let's move on to Saturn transit in the 11th house for Gemini rising sign. Saturn, the planet of discipline, structure, fears, boundaries, meets the sign of Aries, which is about courage, pioneering, but also some conflicts as well. And it's in the 11th house, hopes, wishes, gains, and friendships. So it really feels like you're going to have to be checking out your goals, Gemini. You're going to have to be looking at whether your goals, wishes, and your futuristic mindset, in a way, is real. Is it realistic, achievable? Did we give enough time for ourselves, or we want everything immediately? Because then, unfortunately, if your answers to these questions are pretty much about a no, 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 then expect Saturn to kick some butts here. So this is telling you to plan for the long run. This is telling you to be patient because things are not just granted because you clicked your finger. You're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to experience delays and frustration here. Surely you might need to be examining some of your past dreams also. And it doesn't mean that it didn't work out, let's say 7 years ago. So I'm not going to pursue that. But this says that we're going to have to have a more structured and a plan to work with so that this time around it can play out. Remember, Saturn says if you work hard, if you are disciplined enough, then success is coming. 11th house is quite a success oriented house. Is the planetary joy of Jupiter. So it can bring you a lot of goodies here through consistent effort, through having realistic objectives, goals. In business world, we call them SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, time-bound, and relevant. So you're gonna have to be coming up with a plan, a futuristic plan in a way that is relevant to the society. And maybe, I don't know, I want to do some traditional stuff. Saturn, okay with that, but Aries is not, 11th house is not either. So how can I put a unique spin on this traditional stuff so that it becomes relevant somehow? But also, this could talk to you about it's time to kind of do a bit of a clearance in the friendship zone or to build a solid foundations with the friends based on mutual respect. And and surely, of course, when it comes to your ambitions, a solid foundation for those as well. I mean, you can have obviously personal goals and then you can have professional goals. For me, the 11th house is a little bit more professional goal, and the reason being is because the next house is the 10th, so which is the house of achievements, and then it becomes visible. It's kind of like you want to lose weight, for example. With the 11th house, we start it, and then with the 10th house, everyone starts seeing it. So, looking at reassessing your friendships, the social groups, the social circle that you belong to, maybe you realize that it's better to be alone than having fake friends, for example. So you can be distancing yourself from certain type of people, and those people can actually leave you as well. And just remember the reason why they have left you or you are leaving them because they are not serving your growth anymore. Maybe they are not courageous enough and then they are dragging you down. You know, Saturn says focus on the quality rather than the quantity. That's one of the difficult part of the Saturn going through the 11th house, because as I said, 11th house has Jupiter as the planetary joy there, and Jupiter focuses on quantity. Saturn focuses on quality. So obviously that's two contradicting energies. And it says that it's better to have, you know, a quality income, quality friends, rather than having a lot but not knowing, like it's not meaningful. So it's going to be asking you to reassess whether the connections that you've got with benefactors, friends in your life are meaningful enough or not. Do they bring certain type of a wisdom into my life? This could actually indicate that you are going to be arguing with your friends a lot more or on social media and so forth. Maybe you don't want to fit in anymore. You know, Aries is a little bit of a rebellious energy. Maybe you feel somehow discriminated. You feel like that, kind of like I'm an outsider. And that could bring your mood down, of course. But at the same time, you gain your freedom back and you can be whoever you want to be. You might feel betrayed, for example, by friends of yours and group of people as well. But as I said earlier, the 11th house for me is highly connected to professions. Especially, this is the house of gain from businesses. And maybe you're gonna have to have a new strategy how you approach business endeavors. Like what I'm going to be doing with the profit. This 11th house is like the profit and loss sheet that you meant to be creating. And maybe we're gonna have to have someone who is gonna help us grow the business. Maybe actually it gives you the possibility to get promoted, which obviously might be coming with some frustration, delays, and obstacles. But of course, it comes with extra money as well. With Saturn, often we have to make sacrifices, like sacrificing the friends in order for you to get promotion, meaning that you are unable to meet your friends as often as you used to because you've got a lot more responsibility. The 11th house is a succeeding house, so it connects to finances as well. So therefore, your finances or business money needs to go under a bit more scrutiny, like a little bit of an inventory. You can imagine scenarios that we discover someone had stolen money out of the registry and so on. But also this could indicate that the income is decreasing somehow. That's why we're gonna have to start having a different type of strategy for that. This is about financial control. This is about having to cut costs and so on. And maybe we're gonna start thinking about, okay, I need kind of like resources and money from somewhere else as well. Because Saturn is the planet of hard work and we need the money. So I'm going to do a side job and so on. Of course, the challenge often with Saturn in the sign of Aries is that Saturn is about consistency and, in a way, slow motion. And then Aries is very impulsive, very much, I want it right now. So, of course, Saturn demands the Aries part of our chart to be more patient. So it tells you that, okay, you've got great, I'm going to give you an example here. 2 weeks ago, they opened a restaurant right at the bottom of my house. It's a schnitzel factory. And I never saw a single soul there. The prices were decent or something like that. Like it was decent, nothing wrong with it. But I saw them close down yesterday after 2 weeks. I am not sure why they closed down, but they closed down. Maybe it's some legal matters, maybe it's the lack of customers and so forth. But what made me, tell you this little story is that with Saturn in the 11th house, it does tell you that the hard work is not going to pay off immediately, and that Aries kind of closes down the restaurant after 2 weeks because we are not making any money. So here we need the strategy of advertising. Obviously, the 11th house is so much to do with, groups of people and Instagram and all these type of things, and that takes time. Maybe you simply feel that you are limited by money, you are limited by some of the connections that you've got. Maybe actually the friends are going to be pushing you to confront your limitations or to reassess your ambitions and so forth. And yes, I mean, with the succeeding houses, often all are connected to vitality, but the 11th house is mostly connected to the vitality of the father. So there could be some declination going there as well, unfortunately. And I would say that self-discovery is super important as well, meaning that why am I hiding behind others? Can I not stand out on my own? So the succeeding houses are so connected to validation, and here you will want that your friends are validating your needs and your emotions, and they validate you in a way intellectually. But the true karmic journey with Saturn is that the validation comes from within. So good luck for you, and we're going to be looking at the last sign, which is Saturn transiting the 12th house for Taurus rising sign.
Every sign and every house, a journey starts, and we allow the universe so vast and true. Astro Viktor, it's here for you.